They say that you learn a lot through experience. Whether it's your childhood or it's in school, experience teaches you a lot. Of course, college and education teaches you as well, but experience is something that will be with you forever. If there's something that I have learned from experience is that I've learned to unlearn a lot. And I'm not trying to undermine what the teachers have told you, what your parents have taught you. I'm just saying that each of you will have your own learning and unlearning. And personally, for me, in order for me to be able to learn some more, I have to unlearn some of the stuff that doesn't really hold value in my life anymore, which is blocking me from becoming the person that I really am supposed to be. And every day is basically you trying to figure out who you're supposed to be. I don't think anyone in this room, much less me, can actually say, I know exactly who I am all the time, every single second. And that's okay. The fact that you can wake up tomorrow and not really know who you are when you look at yourself in the mirror is not necessarily a negative. It just means there's more for you to learn out there, even about yourself. And sometimes, yes, you can look inwards, but sometimes you can look at another person and learn something about yourself. So I'm going to tell you how I first began to unlearn. I think learning can be another TEDx talk altogether, but I'll talk to you about unlearning. I think it happened very early on for me. I think it happened straight out of my mother's womb. My mother is sitting here. And as soon as I was born, and I was born in a small town, it's called Nellore in Andhra Pradesh. And I'll tell you by the end of this, you'll know exactly where I get my peculiar accent from. But we go back to Nellore, Andhra Pradesh, where I was born. And within a couple of years, I was whisked off to America to help my parents' dreams come true. And it was there that I lived for 17 years. And that's where the peculiar accent started becoming even more peculiar. But I will tell you this much. My first language is not English, even though I have a pretty good command over it now. My first language was Telugu, it's my mother tongue. And when I went to the United States, I was equipped only with that language. That's all I knew. And as my mother tells me, that was all I used to speak. Until I went to school and I realized that there is more to learn out there. And even though Telugu was my mother tongue, I had to unlearn a little bit of what I knew in order for me to accept the fact that English was now going to be my most spoken language. And that's how I think the whole concept of unlearning came about. And up until that point as a child, you don't really know what your identity is. I didn't identify as an Indian. I just identified as a kid that wanted to play around. And it was as I was growing up, I started realizing things like the fact that my mother comes from a Hindu family and my father comes from a Muslim background. But what does that make me? What am I exactly? I still haven't figured it out. I will mention this time and again. I still don't know what I am. When people ask me, so your name is such, what does that make you? I really don't know. And people get really dumbfounded when I tell them, you know, I'm a little bit of everything. I've married a Christian boy. Makes it even more complicated. But with complication comes the fact that your mind, your perspective is now expanded. So I'm not saying go marry a Christian boy. I'm not saying suddenly change your parents and make them a different religion altogether. I'm saying there are going to be things in your life which are very different than the person next to you. But you must embrace them and realize that that's what makes you stand out. And that's what makes you you. And that can constantly change as well. I can't change who my parents were, but I can constantly change who I am becoming. So 17 years in the United States of America, ladies and gentlemen, I finally figured out I was Indian. And then I said, you know what? I am so Indian. I love Bollywood movies. I know how to speak Hindi, just like Madhuri Dixit does in Hum Aapke Hai Kaun. I am so Indian. I'm ready to go to India and be as Indian as I can be. So 17 years, I decide I'm going to go. I'm going to forget about university in the United States of America. I'm going to go and be a good Indian in India. The truth is, my mother was moving to India, and I'm a mama's girl, and I had to move there. So I moved there, not knowing that I wasn't as Indian as I thought I was. I mean, what is Indian? I don't think you can actually define Indian in a box. You can't put an Indian or the definition of Indian in a box. So I came here thinking I knew it all about being Indian. I didn't. I realized that India is made up of great many states, great many languages, great many people who look different. And that was okay. So I unlearned so many things I thought I had already learned. I thought I knew that everything was a Bollywood movie. I thought everyone was dancing around trees. I thought everyone did say Tashrif laiye when you walked into the house. Obviously, I was pleasantly surprised, and I still am. I still don't know what being an Indian is. So, moving to India then again, let's enter college. I thought, you know what, I've grown up in the States, I'm pretty polished, I know English, I'm totally fine. I'm okay, I'm gonna fit in, it's gonna be great. First things first, I think writing exams in India was a little challenging for me because I had come with this whole concept of you have to be precise, you have to be to the point, that's how you score marks. Oh boy, was I mistaken. The first exam I wrote, and first of all, getting into college was a real challenge, guys. It was really challenging here. I thought I was really smart, and then I realized my second language, I don't know Hindi, I do not know Telugu anymore, I don't know how to read and write. It's just, what am I going to do? I finally managed to get into college. I chose mass comm, literature, and political science, thinking, I know how to write. I can write my way through college, it's fine. Well, writing wasn't enough. I needed to write pages and pages and pages, and I learned this the hard way because the first time I wrote an exam, I failed miserably. I knew I wasn't a topper, ever. I never wanted to be the topper. I also didn't want to be the person who failed in class after studying for hours and really writing a paper. I knew there was a mistake the moment I walked out of that exam hall. I was the first person out. I was so happy with myself, only to fail. Luckily, there was a nice classmate of mine, now my best friend, who told me, you know what, you need to be writing more pages, and this whole printing your letters is not going to work. You need cursive, it needs to be big, you need to write 10 pages more than you're already writing. So the next time around, at first I thought she was insane. I said, what is she trying to do? Is she trying to make me fail? But then I realized she was telling the truth. And by the end of it, I was one of the smartest people in the class. How is that even possible? Because I went from failing, I put the same amount of studying, and here I was, guys. I was in the top 5 in the class. And that's all it took. It took me to unlearn the fact that you have to be precise, concise, keep it, to the point, unlearn that, and again, adapt to the situation. So I learned to unlearn and learn, and it worked out pretty well. I passed college that way, I passed university that way. I landed a job that way by elaborating everything, becoming a storyteller of sorts. Worked out pretty okay. 8 years in the radio industry, I didn't stop unlearning. I took audiovisual in college thinking it was going to land me the job that I wanted. Initially, I wanted to be a producer working on television shows. I wanted to be the person who makes Grey's Anatomy in India. Of course, you can't even watch Grey's Anatomy properly on Netflix. It's not there. Please tell your Netflix friends, Chetan, that Grey's Anatomy is not on Netflix India. And obviously things worked out differently. I think my path was to come to Bangalore to work at a radio station here, one of the first English radio stations in India. And I interned with them, I got a job with them. And my start at this radio station is not as glamorous as everyone thinks working in radio is. I was the one writing the ads, the person you hate the most, the person that you curse the most. Who writes these ads? This girl was writing those ads. I'm sorry, guys, really. I tried very hard to write sensible, funny, witty ads. It doesn't mix. It's a very hard job. Eventually, I climbed up the so-called corporate ladder within the radio station. I went from copywriter to producer. I was helping other RJs, be the best that they could be on the radio. I was writing word for word. I was writing scripts. It was not them you were hearing, it was me you were hearing. I was helping everyone. And I think one day a really smart person, now in retrospect, smart person, at that time, one of the programming directors realized we have a girl sitting here who talks way more than any of the RJs here. She definitely needs to be on the radio. That time, everyone thought he was insane. Who is this weird accented girl? You're going to put her on the radio so that people can judge her and hate us and hate her? Well, he decided to go against what people said, and he put me on the radio. It started with a 5-minute gossip session on the radio, and that eventually landed me a mid-morning show, and that eventually landed me an evening show. And between the morning and the evening show, that's pretty much where you want to be as an RJ. And that happened without me trying. But along the way, there was a lot of unlearning, guys. Whatever I thought I had learned in college about radio, really just out the window. No one can prepare you for the things you're going to deal with as a radio jockey. No one is going to prepare you for the number of people that A, comment on your accent, B, comment on your opinion on things. First of all, you can't even have an opinion on things because RJs aren't humans. They are literally robots who are supposed to play you songs, and then you're supposed to request those songs. I'm supposed to listen to the client, I'm supposed to listen to the boss, and I'm supposed to listen to the listener. Who is listening to me? I have no idea. But I realized that this is just part and parcel of any job. And as much as I want to pretend that being an RJ is more glamorous than anything else, there is a system to it. I had to learn to balance between what the client wanted, which is usually a lot. They pay money, they pay my salary, so you really have to do a lot for the client. So again, coming back to those ads, not me. It is being paid for, they're there for a reason, and unfortunately, even if I write them, I can't control them. So you listen to your client, you listen to your boss, but then you also learn how to listen to Shagufta on the radio. And eventually that comes out. But again, like I said, there was so much unlearning in the process. Every time I thought, I've figured it out, I know how to be the perfect RJ, I know how to deliver this client read without reading it. I can literally just glance over it and I know how to deliver it. Never convince yourself that you know it all. You will fail miserably and then you'll sit at home crying and no one's going to tell you that it's okay, you'll do better next time because they probably told you don't do that in the first place. And lots of people told me don't be that person. So I unlearned a lot of things, and what I have picked up is not from my bosses, is not from any book on radio, it's not even from myself, it's the people that I speak to or have spoken to on the radio. So now in those 8 years that I was working in radio, about 5 years I spent on the radio. Even if I spoke to one person every single day, and I mean every single day because we didn't even have holidays on Christmas as RJs, or New Year's, or Eid. Yep, the show must go on, and the show did go on. And every day I would speak to people, and every day I was learning and unlearning something. It literally went from this end of the spectrum to that end of the spectrum. This end of the spectrum being that you could literally make anyone happy because you played them a song of their choice, or because you put them on the radio. I've had multiple kids call me in a car. You give them 2 tickets, and they're ecstatic. They don't even know what movie it is. They're just happy that they were on the radio. And to hear them screaming on the radio really taught me to, again, be happy about the smaller things and not worry about the big stuff, about the fact that my link is not going properly. Oh my God, I'm running out of time. I might be running out of time now as well. But the fact is, I stopped sweating the really big stuff. That was one learning. That was simple enough, right? On the other end of the spectrum, it was a very difficult phase because I wasn't even on the radio at that point. I was a producer, and we were trying to start a show which basically helped people in Bangalore deal with their various issues. Mental health issues, we had a psychiatrist who was renowned in the city. It was a late night show. It started as a 1-week thing, thinking that no one's going to call us at 11 o'clock at night anyway, so let's just start off small. So we started off small, but people were listening at that time. The phones were off the hook. Turns out every other person in Bangalore needed help. Turns out every other person in Bangalore wanted to talk to someone about their problems. So even if the problem one day or at one point was, I just broke up with my ex, I don't know how to get over him, it also went to the other end, where as a producer, my job was to screen calls. So if the doctor is live on the radio with a caller at that point, my job was to screen the calls and arrange them according to importance or urgency. I've had to talk to people who didn't see a reason for living anymore. I had to talk to a person who said, I'm in my room, I'm locked up in here. My family's outside knocking on the door. I don't want to let them in because I don't want to live anymore. What do I do? Obviously, I'm not a doctor, I'm not qualified, I'm nowhere near qualified handling this. I could have hung up on that person. That really would have been the easier thing to do. But I couldn't. At that point, everything that logic had told me, or I had been taught in radio, none of that mattered anymore, because the only thing between me and this person, this life or death situation, was a literal phone line. So I waited, I pacified this person, I spoke to this person. That time, I was an invisible friend to this person who hasn't even told me their name, an anonymous caller. And so each and every call like this that I've ever gotten, I don't call them my listeners or the audience, I call them my friends, because you learn things from your friends. Your friends are your family that you choose, they say. And I've learned so many things, and I continue learning and unlearning so that I can make way for more learning. So in a span of how many ever years I would have spent on the radio, hundreds of calls later, I want to take that with me in the real world. So I recently quit my job of 8 years, and everyone's like, "What? Are you insane? That was such an amazing job. You were having so much fun. Why do you want to do real life stuff?" I was living real life, people. I really was, I swear. I was dealing with real life issues. Just because I'm smiling and having fun on the radio, you won't realize that, I just spent the past hour crying over something stupid. I have real life problems like you do as well. But the show will go on, and it must go on. So before I leave, I want to say one of the biggest learnings and unlearnings that I've had because of radio and because of what life in general will teach you is that I never used to ask people, where are you from? How much money do you have in your bank account? What's your religion? Which politician do you like more? Do you eat veg or non-veg? It was never something that even mattered when you were talking to people on the radio. So if there's anything that I take with me from my career on the radio, as a person who's a living example of multicultural, multinational, multi-everything, it's that I want to leave from here knowing that I can look at person A, B, C, and D, treat them with the same amount of respect, equal amount of respect, and not judge them based on things that they can't control. So I request you guys, don't have to be an RJ to be able to do this. If you could leave from here today, or even within this own entire room, this little intimate space that we've crafted for ourselves, if you could just leave knowing that you could look at everyone without actually looking at their skin color, or how much money they have in their bank account, or where they come, or where that peculiar accent is from, I think you'll realize that unlearning and learning can be fun, and it goes hand in hand. And that's truly how I've realized balance will come into my life. I'm not saying that I've attained nirvana and I've completely figured it all out. I might just fall off the stage when I walk down here, and that's fine. I'm the biggest klutz I know, the most clumsy person I know. But that's okay. I'll pick myself up and I'll start over again. So I leave you now, guys, and I hope that, you'll continue to fall and you'll continue to get up. Thank you very much.